All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We're just a bunch of Kiss fans and we talk Kiss. So come along for the ride. You've got nothing to lose. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. We've got Lonnie sliding in right before the bell.
What's up?
Nice to
Slid
see
in the
Lonnie.
home base.
Right.
Marcus Almighty working through his technical challenges. He's so determined to be here. He is here. So thank goodness for that. The voice of reason, Ken, and myself. So it's been it hasn't been that long since we last got together, but there have been a couple of episodes. So just a quick recap of the episodes that come since the last time we were live. First and foremost, Alan Belisha joined me for a conversation last Saturday morning on his new Budokan book that's coming out covering 4 tours. Check it out. The word from the man himself on that episode should be another exciting, high-quality publication from him. I think there are very few people who've been disappointed with his work in the past, so hopefully it'll be yet another home run hit, and I believe he's shipping early mid-June. I don't remember the exact date, but if he's offering it for sale, it's real. So you can trust that there'll be no magic involved in this other than it being absolutely 100% guaranteed real. All right. The other episode that came midweek was with Podcast Rock City. The number one podcast in the universe is Joe Polo and the Kiss Room's Matt Porter. It was great to have both of those guys on, not only as fellow Kiss podcasters, but 2 of those who were chosen to go to Vegas and be part of what is now known as the Kiss Superfan panel. And what I wanted to do with having them guest on was, again, rebuild the bonds of inter-podcast connectivity. We used to do a lot of crossover stuff that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. I want to get people on from other shows, get different opinions, just nothing but love, as Matt would say, because these guys are passionate Kiss fans as well. And if you don't know who they are, check out their shows. Joe will be live on Sunday evenings. I've been tuning into his shows recently, and it's just as fun as here. So there's something for everyone at this buffet of Kiss fandom. All right, other news. Binky Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know who Binky Phillips is, shame on you. Go find out. He was on the Ramble Gamble podcast, and it felt like much longer than it was. But he was on a podcast talking his Kiss stories, his music stories, and if anyone follows him on Facebook, Binky has some amazing rock and roll stories from New York City, some great ones about The Who. Pretty much, if there's anyone in popular culture over the last 60 years, mainly from the beginning part of that, he's had an interaction with them, and his stories are legendary. I don't think he's going to do a book. I wish he would, but his podcast appearances really are. Mark?
Something very important. Did you guys listen to the interview with Gene and Rick Rubin? The 3 hours, 20 minutes interview that he did on Rick Rubin's Technogrammaton. I'm just gonna say this. If you're new to Kiss, it's a good interview to listen to. But if you know a lot about Kiss, like how we do here and other Kiss people on the channel here and everything else know, it's a hard listen. Gene loves rewriting history. I love Paul's comment about Gene Simmons, is that the truth is never good enough for Gene. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not listening to 3 hours of any fucking podcast ever again. Those days are gone. Keep it to an hour, keep it short, keep it concise, or as concise as possible, says the guy who monologues. Yeah, but do check it out. Paul's also on is it another Richard Marx podcast talking about John Farnham this week?
Chris Jericho.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it was Jericho he was on.
I don't think I've listened to a Chris Jericho podcast yet
Yeah,
either.
nothing new.
Yeah, but
He's
still,
awesome.
at least At least those guys are getting out there and doing, podcast appearances. It's just that there's not a lot to really talk about, or if Gene does talk, it's sowing seeds of uncertainty into the blender, which is not good when it comes to Kiss Army Storms Vegas. All right, final bit of news was the Pop House interview in Billboard magazine with Per Sundin, who is the CEO of Pop House Entertainment. That's got, again, as we're putting together the little bits and pieces of information about Pop House, the future of Kiss, where they are going with the property, it's useful to check in on all those little threads, whether it's an interview with some of the influencers on this channel, whether it's interviews with other principals around it. That's the only way that you're going to build up a picture as we head towards 2027 and the avatars. And I think that is pretty much the news this week, other than Kiss Online went live with an there's been a lot of criticisms of Kiss Online and its content over the, probably the past decade to a certain extent. But this week they dropped a feature. They hit a home run with the New York City Audio Tour, and now they've done he's been a guest on this show, Bernd, and his adventures in Scandinavia during the Unmasked World Tour in 1980, a write-up by Ken Sharp with Bernd on that, which I found very engaging because Bernd has a great story. And, we'll have to try and get him on to give us his version of that story on an episode, and we can really put him under the interrogation about Unmasked, which is, of course, celebrating its 45th anniversary next weekend. For those who are wondering why we haven't done an episode yet, it's because the album hasn't actually had its 45th anniversary yet, regardless of what other date people are celebrating it as. I had people pinging me saying, "Hey, why aren't you guys celebrating Unmasked? Why aren't you doing a refocused episode on it?" Well, we're doing this one.
It's because Mark hates Unmasked, so we're not going to do it.
Well, speaking of Unmasked, though, Kiss Online has been talked about for other reasons. One that's very familiar with a lot of us is their fantastic packaging that they've been getting a lot of credit for, again, with lots of bent albums and, people very much not pleased with their packaging. How hard is it, guys, to pack a record? Really? I mean, I pack them all the time. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to pack a record properly and send it without getting it bent. I don't understand that.
It's not Kiss Online. So,
well, whoever Kiss it is Online, that they hired.
You mean one of these?
Yeah. So take us into the mailroom, Ken. What did you get this week?
Yeah, in the mailroom, I had a delivery yesterday.
I got mine too.
Yeah, two of them. So this one is the embossed one. Still has the shrink wrap on it.
Very nice.
This one, it comes with the poster. It's a one-sided poster of the original, so everyone knows that. But the vinyl is, pretty cool looking. Color or whatever.
Can you enlarge Ken?
I like it.
What's that?
Big. Enlarge Ken there.
My teeny?
What do you mean enlarge Ken?
Put him solo. Hit solo, and it'll make him full screen.
Oh, solo!
Don't tell him what to do.
I'm still not solo. Now I'm small. Woo. Anyway,
whatever.
That's that one, and then the other one is the one of the foil. Oh, now he's okay. The foil.
What the hell's going on?
See, this one's the all shiny.
What was the hype sticker on the other one?
Cover. The hype sticker on this one is.
Don't ruin it. Oh, it's no longer meant in packaging now.
The big one that was on the other one. It was on the record.
All right. Okay. It has a.
There we go. Or do you think?
I think it looks great.
Very nicely done.
So that's good. But this one, the shiny one, it's pretty cool. And they had different colors on inside. The other one is green on the inside of the sleeve, outer sleeve of the this one comes sticker.
Very nice.
And then, of course, the picture disc itself, which that's the photo shoot from People magazine, right?
Mhm.
That. Then the other side is the better side there.
Cool.
And
Did you play it?
The only other thing about it is, no, I haven't played it yet. Actually, is the double-sided poster that came with the picture disc. I like that. It has the original, but then it has.
How is that? It looks pretty thick. Feels like a good quality poster.
Yeah, it's good quality. It's heavier paper.
Yeah.
So,
The T-shirt's really a heavy T-shirt too.
Eric in the original early makeup, so that's probably why they are allowed to show him. I guess. I think.
Interesting.
Both pictures.
How are the T-shirts in that?
The T-shirt's pretty thick. It's pretty heavy, I thought.
I got one too.
Yeah.
Mine's in the wash right now.
I got one of those later
That's it.
ones.
That's Kiss Unmasked, at least
Very nice.
this week.
Yeah. I think they continue to hit a home run with these anniversary issues. They obviously have, pretty much fixated on the foil treatment and then an alternative for the regular edition. But I've seen a wide variety of the colored vinyls, and they look absolutely incredible. Some of them are spectacular, approaching as good as the Mexican issue from 1980 with its translucent multicolored swirl or whatever that design's referred to as. I had one of those back in my collection, but the new ones look really, really good. So well done to them. Much better than that cake sprinkle one that was done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we're doing a giveaway this week because I got something in the mail which I don't want, and rather than throw it away, it's the Kiss Army 50th anniversary lithograph, 11 by 17. If you want it, random drawing, email KissFAQ@outlook.com and just put Unmasked or any album in there. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be random on entries. Your email will only be used for the random drawing and then deleted. It won't be sold to Kiss Online merchandising or spam. So if you want the lithograph, it's open to everyone anywhere in the world. Customs, if there are any, or tariffs, if there are any, are your problem, not mine. So free to enter. All right, let's get into some board topics this week. And, you guys in the audience who are watching live, we very much appreciate you joining us live each week when we do these shows. You make the shows much more interesting from your input. If you've got any topics you want to throw into the ring, please do. Max, thank you for the email. I like that topic. We are going to do it. But we'll make a show out of that one because that can have some multimedia attached to it. So we will put that on the schedule down the road. All right. So first topic for the day is, did Dynasty usher in a new era of Kiss? And I want to see if there is a context to this. And I did look back at all these topics that I picked this week are double Dynasty topics. So do be warned. They may be a little bit off the hook, and it doesn't give any context to what does it mean to be a new era of Kiss. And Lonnie, for you, does Dynasty separate itself from the originals era, the first 6 albums, I think it was?
I think it does. I think that it's the beginning of a transition. I mean, and I know that it's not disco. Everybody says, "Oh, it's the disco album." And we've had the discussion that it's "I Would Made for Loving You" is the disco song, but it is the start of a transition. I mean, they look different too. I mean, they are the super Kiss at that point in time. The dolls had come out. All the merchandising had come out. You have younger fans, much younger fans at the shows by that point. And the music is slightly different. You had Vinnie Pancia producing as opposed to Eddie Kramer, and it is the beginning of a transition. And I mean, you can see, in my opinion, you can see a shift from Love Gun Alive to Dynasty. I think it's a major shift in my opinion. I agree.
Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a shift going on there. I think one of the things that happened, and Kiss are not the only band that's guilty of this, but once they got that huge contract there, I think the attitude in general kind of changed within the band. I mean, when you're hungry and you're wanting to get to the top, and sometimes it was hard to come across cash in the early days. Your attitude and how you approach things is much different than when you have your wallet's fat and you have huge estates and you have all these cars now. You're not, the urgency probably isn't there as much as it would be. Now, I love Dynasty. Everybody knows that I'm a big Dynasty guy. I speak about highly of it all the time. So musically, it didn't really bother me, but I think that whole transition started, with Gene kind of, being more interested in appearing on People magazine covers and stuff like that. And, he started separating himself a little bit. Like there was changes happening within the band during this time. So I don't think so much it was the Dynasty record that did that, but that time period definitely is where I started to see that change happen.
All right, Ken, talk some sense. What's the truth?
The truth. Well, the solo albums is the deal for me, but yeah, Dynasty, at least for a Kiss album trend, the change that really changed a lot. But I think the intentional change of trying to be more commercial is the deal on that album. Plus the fact that they really pushed "I Was Made for Loving You" when they didn't have to. Yeah, it's a great, well-written, it was a hit song. But to me, they never should have pushed that as a single. They should have pushed something else, like something heavier, whatever. It could have been Charisma.
Song, right?
Charisma. Yeah,
Charisma.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been as big.
That's fine. I don't, it wasn't that big in the US.
Yeah, it's fine for you, but not for them, probably.
They didn't know what they're getting. I just think, again, I always think that "I Was Made for Loving You" should have been the last track on the album and say, hey, see, we can do disco too, kind of thing, just as a kind of a half, wink kind of thing. Like the Peter Criss wink on Unmasked. There you go. Anyway, so yeah, it was a change. I think it was, I don't know if it was necessarily their idea. As Vinnie Poncia direction, obviously they kind of knew what they're going to get. Plus the actual Casablanca, I think, is the other part of that issue. Anyway, that's just how I always felt about that.
Yeah, with a younger audience emerging, I think they needed safer music. Chris,
Safer.
I disagree with your comments about too many Ace songs. Ace songs on Dynasty are what give that album credibility. With the kind of the disco edge of Dirty Living, that's got a disco edge. And obviously "I Was Made for Loving You" with its Bee Gees falsetto has touches on the dying disco sense anyway, but everyone else was doing disco songs as well in 1979. Blondie, Rolling Stones, so
yeah.
they weren't alone in exploring that sound and the impact that the disco movement had. It crept in anyway, but it shifts a definite separation between the original era, in that the solo albums were full stop the end of that original innocence. So they want a more mature audience, musically, or a more naive one. So saccharine music rather than dangerous, larger than life, or Gods of Thunder, into kiddie-friendly AOR accessible music. So yeah, for me, it's totally the start of a new era, but really the sunset of Kiss to a certain
Of the
extent.
original kind of, yeah,
of the original. Vinnie Poncia, I mean, he was known for his work with Ringo, Melissa Manchester. He was very safe. He was perfect for Peter's solo album, did a great job on that. But his songwriting in the 60s and his work on pop music, I'm sure that appealed to Paul Stanley as well, with his pop sensibilities. and that becomes much more the case on the following album. So,
Yep.
Weird shit. I've been living in Dynasty land a lot lately, and it's really fun to go back and look at that shit. And it was Dynasty's 46th birthday this week. Did any of you spin the album? Ken, did you put it on backwards just to go back to old times?
Play side 2 first? Yeah.
Yep.
No, but every time when the Dynasty anniversary comes up, I still have that vivid memory of being in the record store with my friends, 2 other friends of me, and we're looking at the Kiss going through the album. It's like, where the hell's the album? They said that a new album was out today. And then there's boxes on the floor, and then it's like, wait a minute, let's look in here, and you kind of open it up, and there it is. There's a stack about that many or so of albums mixed with other new releases that were coming out, I think, that day, and just pulled it straight out of the box and went to the register and drove home and put on side 2.
Yep. Another album that's had its birthday, Lonnie. Revenge
had a birthday this week.
Yeah.
I did listen to it, as did Jason. Jason and I had a little conversation about it the other night. I listened to it. It brings back fond memories. I did not buy that the day it came out. I bought it shortly thereafter. And there's some people out there that I conversed with this week that said, like, oh, it's not as good as it was when I put it on in '92. But you know what? I disagree. I think it sounds just as great and just as heavy, and I love it just as much today as I did when I was in junior high when it came out.
So there was a thread on the FAQ, Lonnie. I want your take on this.
Yes. Is
Tough Love grunge? Is Tough Love a grunge song, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I don't consider that grunge. I think might be able to look at some songs off of Carnival that we might be able to make that argument for, but Tough Love, I don't agree with that. I think Tough Love's a rockin' song. I don't think it's grunge.
Yeah, Tough Love. No. I don't. When I first heard that, I never thought, if I felt something was grunge, I would feel it right away or hear it right away. So, no, that doesn't sound anything like grunge. Nothing until Carnival of Souls.
All right, Mark. Yeah. Last one to chime in on that. Grunge or no? Yay or nay?
No, not grunge. I mean, I think that album is, pretty much them just sticking to more of their rootsy hard rock stuff, and I don't hear any real attempt to do any kind of grunge on that. And I did spin Dynasty this week, not totally forgetting about the anniversary. I tend to spin that record a lot, so I did get on there, but no, not grunge.
Yeah, Vincenzo, we did hear that Peter's coming out with a new album.
Wow, where's he been?
Yeah.
Gee, who heard it first? I think it was Julian, actually.
100% true. More information on that will, of course, be available on peterchris.net as the time approaches a bit closer and things get lined up for that. All right, let's move on into another topic from the board. I can get rid of the Binky and the billboard. I've got a lot of tabs open here and Chrome starts destroying it. All right, so another double Dynasty topic. Were the songs played too slow live in 1996? And there's no denying there was a contrast in the performances between the final Revenge lineup 95 shows, which, again, they are way up there on a pedestal for a great many fans in terms of their dynamics and power, if not always the sonics. 96, you bring the original crew back in, older, theoretically wiser, and the tempos certainly do slow down. But was it too slow, or had things sped up too much in the 1980s and kind of sullied one's opinion about that? So, Lonnie, let's start with you again.
You can make the argument that those 95 shows may be some of the best, if not the best shows musically when you listen to them. Like they sounded so good, so tight. And I know like Lonnie's just revenge biased, and that may be true, but but those 95 shows, that Japan 95 and those South America shows in 94, man, do they sound good. And the band is just on fire. But it wasn't well received though, obviously. And the band knew they had to do something. And when you compare those 94, 95 shows to 96, yes, they do sound differently. But I don't remember being at the show in 96 thinking, oh, wow, they're just plodding along through this. I never felt like that. And when I listen to, bootlegs from 96 today, I don't feel like, oh, this is just plodding along. I don't feel like that. When I listen to those shows from 96 today, all I think about was how great of a time it was in 96 and how my band was back and they were on top of the world and everybody all of a sudden is this big Kiss fan. And I'm like, screw off, basically, because I've carried the flag for a long time here. Then all of a sudden everybody's just on the bandwagon. But and even today, when I listen to it again, when I listen to those 96 shows, I don't feel that way. Now, if you go listen to that Millennium show, well, that sounds,
Please don't make me do that. No.
Well, then I won't. But I feel like when you do listen to that, you can. I feel like it waned from 96 to 2000. I think the energy that was there in 96 had fallen and they weren't as and just the band in general just wasn't as on top of their game as they were for the reunion tour. And I think when you listen to those farewell shows, you can hear that. Just any of the farewell shows, you can hear that as well. Maybe not the Japan and Australia of 01, because I think the band is re-energized. But when you listen to like those farewell shows compared to 96, I think they slow down. But in 96, no, I don't have a problem with the pace they played at all.
Yeah, interesting. Mark.
Yeah, I think Lonnie pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that when they came back, it was a good tempo. I mean, a lot of the songs I thought were great. And I mean, we had to kind of suffer a bit in the 80s with the, very fast tempos that they were doing on some of these songs. Like some of them were just ridiculous how fast they were. And, and what people seem to forget is that when you play some songs faster, it sometimes loses its power because of that. Sometimes when you slow the, put it back to the original tempo, or even maybe slow it down just a hair, you sometimes put a little bit more heaviness back into the music itself. But yeah, 95, the 96 shows were really good. Even the Lost City tour was really good. I thought Psycho Circus, there was little evidence of maybe here and there, a little bit of a, slowing down here and there, but nothing too major. But I have to agree, the farewell tour and that was already starting to show signs of the, running out of gas there as far as tempos were concerned. But yeah, I think 96 was good. I don't have any complaints about that.
Yeah, I didn't think in 96 that it was particularly slowed down, but it did definitely contrast with the speed of the previous few years, which was, most of my collecting was of 80s bootlegs. So it certainly felt different to that. But when you go back to the 70s, it's like they tried to reconstruct the 70s as accurately as they possibly could while updating the technical side of the presentation as much as possible to magnify the effect of it. So they were caffeinating it. I didn't have any real complaints going back and listening to them. I can still pull out my favorite bootlegs, Your House and Is My House and Oberhaus from December 96, Burning Stockholm, always a favorite. Those are kind of the two go-tos for 96. 97 stuff, there's a few good ones that circulate, not Columbus, Georgia. But there are others which are well worth listening to. I don't have a problem with it because I think they're really honoring that original intent. It doesn't have the fire and the fury of a live era, but if you compare it to, Kiss in 77, 78, I think it fits much better. Am I going to start counting the beats or gridding it out in a software package to compare it? No, but I don't think it's too slow. And again, I don't have a lot of complaints about it musically. You know, the drums sound like they should. The bass sounds, it's got that Gene Simmons growl. Ace's guitar sounds updated to the thickness compared to the 70s sound. That would be something that sticks out far more, as is Paul's vocals. His voice has changed and matured over those years. But all in all, I think 96, again, another project I'm working on is for the 30th anniversary of that, and reliving a lot of that era is just how well they honored it.
The 96 tour, it makes bear to mention that they did update their amps to using JCM 900s, the Marshalls, which are definitely much more higher gain. Back in the 70s and that, they were probably using, you know, like the 68 Super Leads and all those sort of older style Marshalls, which are, you know, very, you know, respected and much adored within the music or guitar community. But the 900s are very more modern sounding, and I think that added to their sound in 96.
Yeah, a lot of things come into play, no doubt, and there's a lot of technical details on that tour that I'm just not capable of kind of balancing. Ken, was it too slow for Ken?
No, it wasn't too slow. I mean, it was fine. Like Lonnie said, you didn't, when you were at the concert reunion, you didn't notice, you know, it was slower or whatever so much. But if you go back on it, it's like, well, yeah, there was quite a difference from the 80s fast paced, which I didn't like a lot of some of those faster paced songs they did in the 80s, where they, you know, they did up tempo, they increased the tempo, everything is a little bit too much for me. I mean, I understand it. I understand what they're trying to do, but yeah, I like the original. I think the God of Thunder is probably still the God of Thunder is actually probably the up tempo version, which is like the Live 2 version, because the Destroyer version, in my opinion, was too slow for me. I didn't like that, but yeah, it was fine in 96.
That Millennium version of God of Thunder, holy crap, is that slow? It's awful.
It's really weird when we kind of bash on that Millennium show, but when I watch the video on YouTube, I've said this so many times, when I watch the video on YouTube of that show, it's far more enjoyable than listening to the show that was part of the 2006 box set or pressed onto vinyl. It's very weird how just being part of the visual experience can shift your perception of what is essentially the same performance. Maybe it's because you can't hear everything clearly, because you've got the audience kind of manipulating your mind into they're having a great time because they're there on New Year's Eve. So therefore, watching it, you're having a great time reliving it. So Ken, I want to go back to you for another topic from the board, and it's one that you've been very active in today and yesterday. And yes, you have.
Yeah, and you're getting banty on the board.
Yeah, the superfan folks
trying to get banned.
It was an interesting topic, and one I didn't really want to chime into in any way, because I think discussions on, you know, the focus group are that we don't know what questions were asked. But what were some of the biggest elements that you think Pop House needs to take into account that you were presenting in your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Well, when I wrote something about Pop House really should look at not just pick out the ultimate Kiss fan that, for instance, maybe buys everything, every merchandise item that they have out there, or a fan, or a apologist kind of fan. Either you're only going to get certain kind of information back from those type of fans. Sure, you can have them too. I think it's fine, but they have to have some other casual even fans, or what would a casual fan want to see more of that they don't get, you know, that would make them more of a fan, maybe more of, bring them more on board with Kiss and sort of that sort of thing. And then also try to figure out how other how to get those younger fans on board, or how to market Kiss to a younger crowd that's never heard of Kiss in the first place. Like get it out there, seen somehow in some fashion, and then along with the music where they could see it. And maybe that's getting it into the media somehow, like on movies and things like that. I know some people probably never heard I Was Made for Loving You. We were just talking about that a while ago with Dynasty, and that movie last year that came out. What's the name of that? Oh, The Fall Guy. And that played over and over. And that thing just boosted the streams of that song out there to where it went to over 1 billion. So things like that, if they can market Kiss to, even cartoons, even start them off young and that sort of thing. But they can't just look at the fan like the Kiss can do no wrong. And this is what, I can't, you can't have those type of people. You have to get people that even will criticize what some of the things they've done in the past. So yeah, that's part of what I was talking about. And about the other thing is there a way to create that mystique from the it seems like it would be very difficult, but they might be able to do some kind of way to create the mystique in a different way. If they come up with some ideas on how to make things more, I don't know, I can't even think of the word, but like, oh, what do they really look like, or other things about it to make it mysterious kind of thing. Kiss, to make them like try to figure out more about them, or more about Kiss, or more about the music, more about anything about Kiss. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of a weird, interesting subject.
Yeah, Lonnie, the comment that Ken made that really jumped out at me was they need to figure out how to gain younger fans. How important do you think that is going to be going forward? And is it even a realistic expectation that Pop House can actually discard all the old ones and bring in a whole new audience to what would be basically they wouldn't know the difference between what is canonically correct in history?
Well, I think that I think it's important that they try to gain younger fans, because the Kiss army is aging. But I also feel like Kiss is generational at the same time, where, how many times have you gone to a Kiss concert and you've seen parents there with their children? Mm-hmm. And how many times have you seen, and I know some people that are, that are young adults now that are uber Kiss fans, not just fans because, oh, my dad likes them, so I went to the show when I was 10 years old with them, but they have really passed on that fandom and that love to their children who are young adults now and are fans, like legit fans. And I think that that can continue to be the case moving forward, where I think it is generational, and it's something that's going to pass down from generation to generation. Like someone's love for a sports team, almost like, I'm a fan of this team because my dad taught me that we're fans of this team in this house, and that settles into you at a young age. But so I agree with Ken on that the young fan thing is important. I also think, and it's something I harp on this show all the time, is that Pop House needs to look at not just the white collar fan, not just the 1% fan. It's something we talk about all the time. I feel like everything that we've seen so far is geared toward the fan with a lot of disposable income, where I think that it's very important that we gear toward the common fan. If you want to sell merchandise, you need to appeal toward more than just the top 1 or 2% of Kiss fans. Metallica has a load box set coming out in June.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here looking at it, and there's a deluxe version of it for $275. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good.
And it's $275, and there's a lot of crap on here.
Oh, yeah.
But if you scroll down here, there's also a 3 CD expanded edition for $25. You know, I'm a Metallica guy, but I'm not a $275 for a load deluxe Metallica guy.
Yeah.
But I can say, you know what? I'll get the 3 CD expanded edition of Load, because I know Load came out when I was a senior in high school. It still kind of means a lot to me. I can get that. And there's also a Load remaster vinyl, 2 LP set. Guess how much the Load remaster vinyl is? $37. It's not $100.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come with a T-shirt either. You can buy that, and okay, here they're Metallica and is gearing toward the casual common fan. You can get a cassette for $15. You can get the Load remaster single CD for $15. Kiss isn't doing that. And I know they had, when they did the Creatures and when they did the Destroyer, there were some other versions of that. And I hope that when these other box sets come out later in the year, apparently, that there are other options, that not every Kiss fan is this white collar 1 or 2% Kiss fan. And some Kiss fans aren't the 1 or 2% Kiss fans, but I'm still going to spend the money on it because I'm such a huge Kiss fan. But you have to not only look at only the white collar Kiss fans, but you have to look at the blue collar Kiss fans and just the casual Kiss fan. You have to gear toward the casual fan as well, not the Kiss fan that Ken was talking about earlier that wants everything. I have to have everything because I'm this type of Kiss fan, so I have to get the most deluxe box set. You have to have different price points for different people, because not everybody is like this. Is like me, a tattooed up Kiss fan who needs to have everything.
Honestly, Lonnie, I got to give you a round of applause.
Both Creatures and Destroyer have had
they did
deluxe editions, you know,
and I hope that continues to be the case.
But you know what? Honestly, Lonnie said something really important there, though. Too, that deluxe box set for $275 is well worth it. I mean, I'm not even a big Load guy, but that is what you get on that is unbelievable.
That's kind of funny, right?
Sorry, Mark.
It's okay. No, it's a good buy. $275. It's unbelievable how much that you get for that. And of course, if it was in the hands of Kiss, it would be double the price, and and they wouldn't care because they know that they have people that would be willing to buy it at that price. But Lonnie's right. You have to, if you don't pitch the stuff to everybody, then you're only going to have one group of people, and those people are getting older, and the interest, I don't think it's there still with the younger people.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about, but there we go. Ken,
you already got me, but I was thinking of something else, that biopic thing. The biopic, is that will that be any good enough to bring some new fans on board? You would hope they would want to make it as and entertaining as possible, if they do it right, which could bring on more fans before the Pop House thing kicks off in 2027. I don't know when the biopic's coming out, this year, next year. I would think it should be before 27, because I think you'd want to have it out there to help, create interest in the band. But we'll I don't know. We'll see. It may be a dud. Obviously, the real Kiss fans are going to say, well, that didn't happen. This didn't happen. He didn't say that. He didn't do it, or whatever. I hope they try to get it as accurate, try to be accurate, but those things are never accurate as they really should be.
It's going to end up like the bloody Rings of Power, where everything canonical is twisted and shifted by a bunch of people with no connection to the material writing it up. And that was the biggest problem with the Rings of Power, is that those people don't have any association or attachment to it. They only know fantasy from seeing Lord of the Rings, those abominations that Peter Jackson did that took liberties, or their writing experience comes from the Disney realm, where storytelling doesn't matter as much as social messaging being injected into it. So I'm worried that any biopic, should it happen, will end up as bad as Spinning Gold's Kiss content, because that was pretty damn dire. I mean, it was exciting to see as part of a broader story that was telling Neil telling a version of Neil Bogart's story. But it scares me to death to think what is history, what is accurate history, what is good storytelling don't necessarily meld together in making something that is engaging and entertaining. So what liberties do you take? Do you have the story of the formation of the band and Ace auditioning, and you shift things around so that Gene and Paul are the victors, because they're the ones who still control, that only their version of the story is presented, whereas Ace's version of the story is discounted because it doesn't marry up with Paul's, or Peter's version of the story doesn't get included because it doesn't marry up with Gene and Paul's. So I'm very worried about how storytelling will take a backseat to rewriting history, as both of those guys remember. And again, they are the controlling parties of KISS. They're the ones who kept the band going. The other members departed and sold their memberships of various parts, of their history for their reasons. But I'm very worried about storytelling in this day and age. When I see them doing Silmarillion stuff on Amazon, whenever I see that Amazon's bought a storied property, I'm just like, how are they going to fuck it up now? What are they going to do to twist it, to make it, so that the history turns out in the way that a writer think it ought to have? Why is there no consistency in that story? It's why, my favorite author is David Gemmell, for Brits and Europeans who know that fantasy guy. He's been dead for years now, has never had, as far as I'm aware, anything turned into movie or TV of his work. Thank God. Because it just, Clive Cussler, another great one. I loved Clive Cussler, and they sure screwed the pooch on Raise the Titanic, and they really fucked up Sahara. Again, I worry about biopics. Let's get back to the topics from the board. Another one is, did KISS stay back on top after the reunion? In 1996, KISS was back on top. Did they stay on top from 1996 to 2023? I can't believe I'm even asking that question, Lonnie.
No.
Wow.
No. In a word, no. Well, and I can tell you they didn't, because in '98, the Psycho Circus American tour didn't go west of the Mississippi River. I mean, it got canned, basically.
Canceled.
Right. I mean, I never saw them on Psycho Circus tour, because there was a show in Chicago, there was a show in Indianapolis, and I think there was one maybe like in Louisville or Lexington, and I had thought about going to them, and I talked myself out of it, thinking, there'll be more dates. I mean, there's no St. Louis, there's no Denver, there's no Seattle, there's nothing west of the Mississippi River. There's more dates coming for this. This is obviously just the first leg. And there wasn't any more dates. So no, they weren't. They did not stay back on top. 2 years later, they're cutting their tour short. And and I think the farewell tour did decent in America. I mean, they had a bunch of shows in 2000, from March all the way through October. But no, they didn't stay on top. And they had peaks and valleys between. It's fair to say they had peaks and valleys between 96 and 2023. 2009, I think that tour did really well after Sonic Boom came out, but they didn't stay on top. No.
Well, Alive 35 transitioning into the Sonic Boom tour, that was really good. In numbers wise, no, they didn't stay on top. They weren't even on top in 1997. It was basically over by the end of 96 in terms of they had whetted that appetite for the reunion. And again, the people who were reliving those fantasies came back in and did it and moved back on to listening to Britney Spears or whatever the hell they were listening to at that time, because Lost Cities and all the tours. Europe was an outlier. Europe remained big because they did basically the festivals. Rock am Ring, Rock am Park, Rock am Ring. I always get those ass backwards, but
Rock am Ring,
and Stockholm in '97, going into the stadia was absolutely massive. But in the States, they were already not selling out reunion shows. I think in September '96, where the sellouts stopped. And it doesn't mean it wasn't a fantastic tour, but afterwards, Ken, did you get to see a Psycho Circus show in '98 without going to Los Angeles?
No, I did not. They never came over up here, Northern California, for that. So they're also the Lost Cities tour from the reunion. They were going to play here, but then they canceled the one at the Cow Palace, which kind of pissed me off. But anyway, because they were going to go to Europe, I think, right then or after that, shortly after that. But yeah, the Kiss didn't stay on top. It was 1 year. It's so much resembles them being on top in '77. They were on top in '77, I think, and then then '96 is kind of a replication of '77. They're on top there, and then
that's good. I'm writing that down.
There's a big drop off after that. I mean, otherwise it's the fans that came back to see Kiss, or the people that were Kiss fans, were current Kiss fans, probably ones that never got to see the original Kiss because they were too young. They were probably little kids, and their parents weren't going to take them to it, and never got to see Kiss in makeup. So those came out, and then some of the new ones, like, well, I'll give Kiss a shot. I never saw Kiss. I didn't think they were that good, but you know what? They may be all right. They said they put on a good show. I'm going to go see them. So all that kind of thing, people came out to see that reunion show. But after that, it started to, just drop off. The people that seen them. Okay, I've seen them once. That's it. I'm not a big Kiss fan. I'm just a casual thing. I saw what all the hype was about, and that's it. So. 77, kind of 96, which they tried to recreate 77, is those two peak years for Kiss where they're on top.
Yeah, I did write that down, by the way. That was a very good point. But I think because the show became so homogenized, so packaged, so containerized, it was always the same elements in the same order. Once you've seen it, there are no surprises. If there were some tricks or gimmicks that were rotated throughout, so that you didn't know if you were getting flaming fireballs or whether Ace was going to shoot bazookas into the audience, etc. You didn't know what you were going to get, and it was tied into different set lists. Maybe there would have been more return business, but '96 was about reliving '77, as you point out. Mark.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of good points made there. I mean, 96, that was their big year. 97, that was pretty much done. I mean, I was fortunate. I got to see them 96. I got to see them 97, on the Lost Cities tour. I got to see them for Psycho Circus. And funny enough, here in Toronto at the Psycho Circus show, they were given on stage their gold records for Psycho Circus, right? So, that's definitely an interesting point there for that. And these guys are never going to let me down with that whole big load thing, I think.
We need t-shirts that Mark's not a big load guy.
A big load guy.
That's good, Mark.
But in any case, I think that it's interesting though, because that whole as quickly as it went up, it went down, and it was for the reason that you guys said. Everybody who was clamoring for them to get back together and make up with the original people, they got it. And then when that was done, people moved on. They didn't really. You could tell then the divide between the real Kiss fans and then the Johnny Come Latelys who just came for the tour, and then that was the end of it. They didn't really give a shit after that about Kiss and what happened after that. So it's sort of sad, but that's the way the music business works.
Sorry, I just got the final score for Celtic versus Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup. Up your Celtic. I'm happy. All right, last topic for the day from the board is, Mark, what sort of Kiss fan are you? Are you a Kiss fan who strayed, lost interest in Kiss for long periods and then came back? Are you not committed? Or are you a Kiss fan who has constantly supported Kiss nonstop?
I kind of look at myself as an honest Kiss fan, in the sense that when they did something that I thought was shit, I didn't have any problems coming out and saying it. I mean, I think really that's sort of what I think a good fan, quote unquote, should be. Because I mean, do you really want to be a yes guy in the sense that everything that comes out, you're going to just say, "Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. Oh yeah," and even though you know it's not, I've been with them since I got into them, and I've followed them. Did I like everything that came out? No. Did I buy everything that came out? No. But I mean, I definitely listened to the music, gave it a chance, and the stuff that I did like, I went in pretty heavy with it. I got multiple copies of records. I mean, my vinyl collection of Kiss stuff has lots of variants and stuff like that. But that's where I kind of stuck with my wheelhouse, was obviously vinyl and stuff like that. I never got into the merchandise stuff, all the other dolls and all that other stuff. But that's the kind of Kiss fan I look at myself. I mean, I look at. I mean, I know Gene is Ken's guy, and it seems like whatever Gene does, Ken will follow it outright. And when Asshole came up, when Asshole came
not everything.
I'm pretty sure he supported Asshole when it came out, but I thought it was garbage, and I was the first one to say it. So I mean, I think obviously Ken has he's a smart guy. He's a cool guy. I look at Ken as like a brother, so I don't want to badmouth him, but I think that he's a bit different.
But I'm going to.
I'm going to anyway.
No, it's all in good fun. I mean, I just think that we're different that way. I'm a bit more critical on some things than Ken would be, or maybe Julian would be.
What?
I mean, I'll answer the question too. So, yeah, I never strayed from being a Kiss fan, though I knew everything they did wasn't the greatest thing. Every album that came out, I thought, "Oh, this is the best album." You're always excited about the next one, hoping it's going to be that. Are they going to go back to rock and roll over sound or anything, or that kind of thing? They never going to go back to any sound really. Yeah, I never left the band, even though there's some things I didn't like. Obviously, I mean, you go to Hot in the Shade or something like that. It's like, well, some of that material is really lacking. There's too many. I mean, I've criticized the band for lots of different things. Yeah. And I've even criticized, Gene is like, don't say, some of the things he says sometimes, bothers me. Also, Paul and so on, they all seem to say things that, it's like, oh, why are you saying that? Just forget, keep the mouth shut and that sort of thing. But I've always been a Kiss fan. I'm a Kiss fan through the good times and the bad times, the ups and downs. I still love the whole story of Kiss and how it turned out to this day, and there's still more to come, obviously. And that's why we are here and this stuff keeps us interested to see what's next for Kiss. But it's always good to go back and look at the past and the things that really got us into them and what we enjoyed, which is usually a lot of it's the music and the show and all that stuff was the biggest thing. And I'll just go back on YouTube and I'll go back and watch these old videos of concerts and stuff, since there's no touring band now, and I get a big enjoyment out of watching all the old stuff and things that I've never seen before. It's like, oh, I've never seen that before, and some things keep coming out and keep us interested. But there's people have dropped off and then they came back, maybe during the non-makeup or Dynasty time. They dropped off and then they came back at maybe in 85, and then some people never came back, but then they came back in the reunion, like we were talking reunion, all that kind of stuff, and come back to see them. But yeah, everyone's different. Some of us stayed here, some of us didn't, but it's all good either way.
There haven't been that many opportunities for me to drop off, with kind of becoming a fan when I did and what came after. I mean, there have been periods, obviously 90 91 in the States anyway, when, you know, the emergence of Nirvana, where I was listening to more of that, but Kiss wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot in that period either. So I guess my periods where Kiss weren't active were periods where my focus was elsewhere. And after that, the internet era hasn't allowed an escape for me, and there's nothing that they've done in terms of the changes within the band, the changes in how they operate that have really forced me to the side in any sense. You know, it's kind of all in the internet era. So 30 years now, 30 plus years. So I never strayed as much, but there are periods of time where I don't listen to Kiss. I don't watch Kiss. I may be working on writing Kiss, but I'm listening to the Rolling Stones. This week I've been listening to Queensryche.
Nice.
And the Beatles, you know, that Beatles video from '65 from Blackpool that I posted on Facebook, you know, so I listened to it on my iPod this week, or my iPhone, has all been Pink Floyd, you know, Delicate Sound of Thunder and Pulse. So I go through phases where I don't listen to Kiss a lot, but I'm still working on Kiss related things. So I haven't strayed, but again, I really haven't had the opportunity. I'm not one of these Kiss fans who've thrown all in with Ghost and that pop shit that they do, just because he wears makeup and has a dynamic show. It's still shitty pop now versus what it was. He's in his Unmasked phase. Pop.
Yeah, kind of.
Metal ABBA.
Maybe.
Yeah, satanic ABBA. Yeah. Lonnie.
You know, I've ridden the wave, you know, throughout the years since I've got into them at a really young age. And, you know, I think, you know, the years that, like Julian said, the years that they're less active, like, you know, like 05 to 08, there wasn't much going on at all, you know. So, you know, you know, you get into other things. And like after the farewell tour, you know, I thought they were done until they came back in 03. You know, I think you kind of ride the wave with them a little bit when, you know, when things are exciting and there's new tours and new albums, you know, you're more into them. And then when there's not much going on, I tend to listen to other things, but I never really strayed from them. I've always been a huge Kiss fan. And, you know, sometimes, you know, at some point, some periods of my fandom, I think I was that blind fan that just loved everything they did. And had to buy any shit product that they put out. Hence some of the shit products I unveiled the one day we were talking about our merchandise that we
Jack in the Box.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, but I think as I've matured a little bit and gotten a little older, that, well, I'm a little more selective with what I purchase from them, and I'm a little more critical of some of the decisions that they made, and I don't follow them as blindly as maybe I once did. But my fandom, I don't think has ever waned.
Yeah, Sylvie, Ghost is a great show. There's no doubt about it. It's a fantastic show. But for my taste, you know, the new album was a real tough one to get through. Impera was tough to get through. Prequel. You know, the first kind of 3 albums when they were heavy. Oh, you think Metallica gives you heavy? Well, Metallica does give you heavy, and they still deliver every damn time they hit the stage. But Ghost stuff just got so watered down and so hung up in the shtick of that character, Papa Emeritus, or whatever the fuck he calls himself. You know, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it just, to me, became so single note that the music is always what I'm into first before the image. And it's the same with Kiss. I was into Kiss because of the music before I realized that they were that band that wore makeup, which, again, the guy became a fan because of Tears Are Falling, basically. It was always the music first, always the music for me. So Ghost, the music isn't doing it for me. If it's doing it for people, great. There's no wrong answer when it comes to that. All right. That was a bunch of Merciful Fate. I'll go listen.
I love Merciful Fate.
Yeah, go check out Satan as well. Another great.
Oh, by the
band.
way, before you wrap up things, I just want to say something. As a member of the FAQ membership area, I'm very pleased that I just noticed on my phone that the new Digging Into the Cassette Pile promo tapes has just dropped online. So very glad to look into that. Thank you, Julian, for putting up another interesting episode to watch later this afternoon.
Yeah, that one was just an off the cuff. I was going through some promos, went through one section of the holder. So yeah, do check it out. I hope you've caught up, Mark. Now that you've
I've watched
got
everything.
access.
Yeah, I got everything.
All right.
Was it worth 99 cents?
Oh, absolutely. I highly recommend it to anybody who
99
hasn't put in their 99 cents. So I do it and will continue to do it.
Yeah, there'll be a song of the moment tomorrow if I could decide which one I want to focus on. All right, that was a bunch of Double Dynasty topics this week. Lighthearted. I know some people, it drives them up the wall when they see Double Dynasty posting some things, but I thought it'd be fun to go through some of those, some of the less insane ones. So, Max, we are going to do your topic. That's going to be 2 episodes out, I think, for that one. Next week will be Refocused at 45. Unmasked. Let's see how we revisit that one, of course, because I was asked earlier when was the release date of Unmasked. According to Billboard, it was scheduled for official release on June the 1st, 1980, which means that it would have been in stores probably for that Tuesday, I think, which would have been the 3rd.
Tuesdays. Yeah.
Yeah, and according to coin memos from 1980, which were detailing the release of the album, June the 1st is also listed as the date, and the copyright records for publication are May the 28th and 29th. It varies, but they handed that record into Phonogram on May the 16th. That was when it was delivered as complete. There is no way it was released 4 days later.
No.
Phonogram was pissed off enough that they didn't have enough time to do the promotion for that album because of the delays and how it was handed in. And how do we know that it was handed in on May the 16th? Because that's the minimum recording obligation period for the due date for the next album, which is The Elder, which was supposed to be handed in no later than June the 16th, 1981. So there's enough paperwork to factually well, it's like the first album. No, does it really freaking matter? I mean,
No.
Celebrated all month. I mean, just like the first album and all the drama over the release date of that one. But we're going to get together and go through that one song by song. We'll talk some of the history. I'll throw in some of the minutia, and we'll give it the full refocus treatment. I hope you'll be able to join us for that episode. But for now, from Lonnie, from Mark, Ken, and myself, hopefully we'll have Daniel back for the Unmasked episode. We shall see you next time. Bye now. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the message board and discuss the topics we've broadcast today. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you've listened to this show, and a like would very much be appreciated. We hope you'll join us again, but until then, remember, life's a radio. Turn it up to 10.